Well, later tonight, IOC delegates worldwide will link up via Zoom to finalise what they're calling their game playbook, which sets out the way officials will deal with the multiplicity of COVID challenges if they were to occur at this year's Tokyo Olympic Games. You could imagine the options. Last week, of course, news spread that the already postponed event would not even go ahead because of the third wave of infections sweeping Japan at the moment. But tonight, IOC Vice President John Coates will talk about where those rumours originated, what the Japanese Prime Minister thinks about holding the event now, and what role vaccines will play in bringing athletes into the bubble. I sat down with John Coates in Sydney this afternoon. John, thank you very much for your time. 1 minute we've got a Games that's on, next minute we've got a Games, well, earlier in the week that was off, and now back on again. It's not a good look for sponsors to hear that.
Well, Games have been on since we decided on a postponement. The Japanese government, the Tokyo Organising Committee and the IOC. The Games were never off. This was a rumour that the Japanese think came out of outside Japan. It was picked up there. Call it a fake rumour, call it what you want. The minute it broke, the Prime Minister of the Japan government, Suga, went back into the deed and said, look, there's no change. I'd been speaking to the President of the Organising Committee, President Mori, a former Prime Minister, the day before. No talk about it. We are in touch with them. We've got meetings tonight. We're on basically daily. And no talk at all.
See, there was a presumption that because there were some local polls done in Tokyo and that there was an overwhelming feeling that it should be put on hold again or even cancelled, that this had somehow come out of the Japanese government.
And in the mind of the Japanese, they explained to me that this was similar to when the pandemic first broke, and they did polls and people said, well, postpone it. We postponed it. And then they thought, well, that option was still available. That option's not available anymore, and that's what's further complicated it.
So the Japanese government is full steam ahead on this?
Oh, absolutely. I went there with President Bach last November to meet the Prime Minister when he came in. Abe was always committed. We were there at the same time as Prime Minister Morrison was, and absolutely committed, and that continues to be the case.
So do you have the kind of protocols that mean there's really no connection between putting on the Games and what's going on in the city of Tokyo in terms of COVID?
No, we spent the first 3 months identifying all of the scenarios, from the worst case scenario of COVID will be continuing to be there and there won't be a vaccine. And it's on that basis that our planning is still taking place, because we've had a second wave of COVID, as you know, in winter. So we're planning on the basis it'll take place without a vaccine. We have planned something like 40-odd countermeasures, and we just decide which ones we need from our toolkit, as it were. We will be releasing next week a series of, we call them playbooks, 20 pages, which, say for the athletes and the Australian team, will give them instruction on what's required from them before they go to the Games. Now, I'll use that as the example. They must undertake testing, saliva and nose, within 72 hours of travelling to Tokyo, like we've now introduced in Australia for people coming here. They'll be tested on arrival. Then they'll be tested, and if they continue to be negative, every 4 days.
So will there be a period of quarantine?
No. Isolation, they will be limited just to the Olympic Village and the transport to their venue for competition and training. That's it. No going downtown. We'll have...
So lockdown virtually, training, performance and village.
But not into a hotel or anything like that.
Do you see, and does the IOC see a sense of responsibility to the athletes or a sense of responsibility to the movement?
And to the Japanese public.
Right.
So all of the above. And so we obviously have all of the people, we've got to think about their safety. It's in our interest, obviously, that as many of the Japanese are vaccinated as possible by the time of the Games, and they've got twice the number of vaccines to their 120 million population. But we've got the obligation as to the athletes, obligation to make the Olympic Village the safest place there.
What about vaccines prior to getting into the village? Will the athletes get access? Would you like them to get access?
Look, in an ideal world, but we're not going to put them in priority to the health workers and the elderly in this country. And that's the position of the IOC worldwide. Now, some countries, they are able to have enough, smaller populations. Israel will be able to, Serbia will be able to, Denmark will, others are asking for it. We understand, and Senator Colbeck, the Minister, had a briefing in Canberra this morning, and he thinks that they could be down to looking after our athletes by May, having dealt with all of the other priorities.
So it's not ruled out yet?
If they have enough and it rolls out, yeah, we obviously will accept it, but not in priority.
In some ways, this Olympic Games will be the Olympic Games where you win a gold medal just by being able to compete.
The challenges that you've had to undertake, and not being able to train in teams or rowing eights or whatever, in many cases, the isolation that the athletes have had, the Europeans, in many cases, just exercising in their home for a long period. This will be a very special medal.
The toughest medal to earn or win in the history of the Olympic Games?
Yeah, well, it's all, yeah, a good generalisation.
What about spectators?
No decision yet. The decision will be taken on the venues. We have to look at the capacity and what the situation is. They've had crowds at baseball of 30,000. You saw what happened here, but we have to. That'll be a decision taken in March or April, and it may be that then there won't be foreign spectators. No decision on that. We should leave those decisions as late as possible.
Yeah. John Coates, thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure.